Hello kids, this is Mrs. Butcher, and this video is on properties of exponents. Alright, so when we have an exponential function, it's written like this. We have a base, and it's raised to a power, which we call an exponent. And we have several properties that our exponentials follow. The first of these is the product of powers property. And that says a raised to the m power times a raised to the n power is equal to a to the m plus n power. So let me give you an example of this with some numbers. Suppose I had 2 to the second times 2 to the third. So see, it's a and a. The bases are the same, 2 and 2. But the exponents are different. M and n are 2 and 3. 2 squared is 2 times 2. And 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2. And if I do 2 squared times 2 cubed, then I'm just multiplying these all together. And now I have 5 2's. So it's 2 to the 5th power, which was 2 plus 3. See? The next property that we have is power of a power. And this is what happens when we take one number raised to a power and then raise it to another power. And when you have power of a power, you multiply your powers together. So if I had 2 squared and then I cubed that, I would be saying 2 squared 3 times, right? That's what cubing means, 3 of those, which would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which would give us 6 2's, which is 2 times 3. So when you've got the same base and you're multiplying them together, you add your powers. When you have one number with a power to a power, then you multiply. Now we can distribute exponents, but only over multiplication, not over addition and subtraction. So if I have a times b raised to the m, then I can split that up into a to the m times b to the m. For example, if I had 2 times 3 all squared, then that's the same thing as saying 2 squared times 3 squared. Because we could do it this way, 2 times 3 is 6, squared is 36. Or we could do it this way, 2 squared is 4, times 3 squared is 9, and 4 times 9 is 36. The next property is the negative exponent property. Anytime you raise a number to a negative power, it does not make your answer negative, it makes your answer the reciprocal. So that's something you've got to know. A negative exponent turns it into the reciprocal of the positive exponent. So if I wanted to take 2 and raise it to the negative 2 power, then that is 1 over 2 to the positive 2 power. Always turn your negative into 1 over. And then that's 1/4. We have the 0 exponent power. Anything raised to the 0 power is 1, no matter what, except 0. 0 to the 0 is not 1. But anything to the 0 power is 1. That's it. Here we have our quotient of powers property. If I take two numbers and divide them, then I can subtract my exponents. So if I were to take 2 cubed and divide it by 2 squared, think of this as 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, and 2 squared is 2 times 2. So I could cancel out that pair of 2's and that pair of 2's and just have 2 to the 1 power left, right? We're subtracting away all the ones that are in common. It's the same thing as if we were to go 2 to the 3rd power and then take away 2 of those exponents because 2 of them are going to match and have 2 to the 1 power. So think, when you're doing division, you subtract your exponents. And the last one that we have is the power of a quotient property. If I've got a quotient division, then I can distribute my power as well. So let's look at it this way. Suppose I had 2/3 squared. I could look at that as 2/3 times 2/3, which is 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. Or I could distribute and make that 2 squared over 3 squared, which is 4 over 9. So either way, it's the same thing. But that's only if a is not 0. And the reason for that is because, sorry, that should be if b is not 0, because we can't divide by 0. So here are some example problems of simplifying. We're going to take all the properties that we just learned and we're going to use them to simplify. Alright, so here we've got 4x cubed y divided by 10x squared times 5x cubed y divided by y cubed. When I'm multiplying, I'm basically putting it all together because it's just top times top and bottom times bottom, right? Alright, so I'm going to simplify the top. I've got 4 times 5 is 20. X cubed times x cubed. That means we're going to add our exponents and have x to the 6th. And then we have y times y is y squared. On the bottom, we've got a 10. And then I have x squared. And then I have y cubed. But now we can simplify from top to bottom here. 20 divided by 10 is just 2. X to the 6th divided by x squared. We're going to subtract our exponents. 2 of those will cancel out. We've got x to the 4th. And then I have y squared on top and y to the 3rd on bottom. If I did y to the 2 minus 3, I'd have y to the negative 1, which is 1 over y. Or you could just think of it as 2 of them cancel out and you have 1 left on the bottom. So our final answer is 2x to the 4th over y. And then for this other one over here, we can do the same thing. We can put it all together. We've got negative 12 times 21, which is negative 252. I have an x here and an x to the 5th here, so that's going to be x to the 6th. I've got a y here and a y squared here, so that's 3 y's, y cubed. On the bottom I have 7 times 4 is 28. I have x to the 4th, and I have y. So now I can simplify a little further. Negative 252 divided by 28 is going to be negative 9. X to the 6th divided by x to the 4th. 4 of those will cancel out. 6 minus 4 gives us x to the 2nd. And y to the cubed over y, 3 minus 1 is 2, or one of those is going to cancel out. I've got y squared as our final answer to that one. And here's one more we can do. I'm going to put these together again. 5 times 2 is 10. I have x to the negative 2nd power and y to the 3rd power in the numerator. I have 3, and then I have x and x to the 10th, so I have x to the 11th in the denominator. Now what we can do is we can do 10 over 3 is still 10 over 3. I have x to the negative 2nd power over x. So if we follow the rule, we'd say that that's x to the negative 2 minus 1, which is x to the negative 3. And then we've got y to the 3rd, which has nothing to mix it with. Only it is never proper to leave a negative exponent in a simplified answer. So you must always say, okay, the negative property is 1 over x to the positive 3. So basically, when you see a negative exponent, you're going to move it. In this case, we're going to move it from the numerator to the denominator because we're dividing. And then that y to the 3rd does not move because this one has a positive exponent, so it stays in the numerator. The only thing that negative exponent does is put the x cubed in the bottom. And that is our simplified answer. So remember, never leave a negative exponent in your final answer. Alright, the last thing I was going to talk about in this video is scientific notation, and hopefully you've already learned about that in science class. But in case you haven't, scientific notation is c times 10 to the n power, where c is something between 1 and, actually that shouldn't say 10, it should be say between 1 and 9, because it's a single digit number. C has to be a single digit number. And then it's going to be times 10 to the whatever power. So if I gave you an example like, write 238 in scientific notation, you would say 2.38, you move the decimal, times 10 to the, and 238 is 2.38 times 100, and 100 is 10 squared. So you could think of it as we moved our decimal 1, 2 places, 2, right? And we know it's positive 2 because we want this to be bigger. This is bigger than this, so this has to be multiplied by a big number. So if I said write 0.0213 in scientific notation, you would write 2.13. We're taking our decimal 1, 2 spaces to the right, so we'd say times 10 to the negative 2, because 0.213 is less than 2.13, so we want it to get smaller. And when you do division, multiplication, whatever in scientific notation, I'm going to show you how to do this in the calculator. You can put in 5.2, and then you hit second EE. And in your calculator, it'll just show a 1E, but it's the second EE, which is above the comma on your calculator. And then you just put the number, so I would just put 6. So this little E means times 10 raised to the. So that's 5.2 times 10 to the 6th power. And then you can hit divided by, and then we could do 2 second EE, which will bring up an E, and then we'd say 3. So that's 2 times 10 to the 3rd power. And when you hit enter, it's going to tell you that the answer is 2600. However, if I ask you for the answer in scientific notation, you know that you're going to say 2.6 times 10 to the, and that's 1, 2, 3 decimal places, so times 10 to the 3rd. And that's really all I have for you today. So here's your last, I gave you all an extra joke today. Here's your little extra joke. It really goes with the last chapter more, but you know, I liked it. All right, have a good weekend, or a good night, or whatever.